Good evening, everybody. It's 5:30. We'll get started here. Good evening. I hope everybody has had a nice day. It's a beautiful day outside, and you've had a chance to settle in and grab a glass of wine or iced tea or your beverage of choice and spend a little time with us, a half hour or so, talking about remodeling and what we're going to focus on today at our Remodelers Survival Guide series are remodeling fears, or maybe a better way to put it is what may be holding us back, from getting what we want. We'll also talk a little bit about some of the approaches to remodeling and in fact why some of those different approaches have actually created some of the fears, some of the nightmares that we hear about remodeling and how we can avoid those. But before I go too long, I just want to take a couple moments and introduce myself. My name is Bill Judson. I've been with HartmanBaldwin for about 15 years now, over 15 years. I'm a licensed architect, a registered architect in the state of California, and a LEED accredited professional. I've degrees in engineering and architecture. And I was raised here in Southern California, Los Angeles area in a stained glass studio called the Judson Studios. And as I was thinking about today's workshop, I remembered in the studio was in a turn of the century building that was originally a School of Fine Art and Architecture for USC. But up on the frieze, there was a saying written that art is only the beautiful way of doing things. And it took me a long time to really understand what that meant. My great-great-grandfather built that building, and he was a big proponent of the arts and crafts. And the idea that art isn't something that you hang up on the wall, but it's actually something that you experience, something that you do, something that you're in, and that it's all around us, or it can be all around us. And that really started to resonate with me because that's really where we come from at HartmanBaldwin. So when I started with HartmanBaldwin, I knew it was a good fit for me. And it's moments like that when I reflect back to that saying on the wall, art is only the beautiful way of doing things, that I start to go, this is why I like it so much here and why I believe in HartmanBaldwin and what we do. So it's a really great place to do. We really value the idea of bringing art and architecture together, so that the places that we live can actually enhance our life, can enhance our lifestyle. I also would like to introduce a couple of the panelists that are on our webinar tonight. Jesse Emmert, you'll see their pictures there across the bottom. Carla Rodriguez, Christina Ramos, and Danielle Doster. They will be on as panelists, making sure everything's running smoothly. And then also, you're probably familiar with Zoom by now. Most people are, but there is a Q&A up at the top. There's a chat too, but they'll be in the background fielding questions if you have them, or if we may decide to gather up those at the end and answer them all at the end. But please, if you have a question, go ahead and drop it in the Q&A and we'll address it. Probably better than the chat. The chat can be a little disruptive, I've found, in the webinars. So please go ahead and put it into the Q&A and we will answer those questions as we go through. All right, next slide, please. So who's HartmanBaldwin? HartmanBaldwin, we've been around for about 35 years now. We started by Devin Hartman and Bill Baldwin. They came from the construction side, met each other on a construction site and decided, hey, let's see if we can work this idea of design build. And from the beginning, they got designers and builders together as they started their business. Because as they were learning, they found, you know what? Looking at these plans, if we had access to the designer earlier on in the process, there may have been a better, simpler way to do this. And likewise, if we have better access to the designer while we're in construction, things can continue to get better while we're building, right? So they worked hard and got together this idea of what a design build company looks like. And to us, what that looks like is we have a full-time staff of full-time architects, full-time interior designers, and we're also general contractors with project managers, as we call them, that run our construction jobs. So it's really a one-stop shop in the true sense of the term. I want to spend just a couple of minutes talking about a couple of projects that just to give you an idea of what we do. This particular residence is recently completed, and where we're standing here, we're standing in the living room looking in towards the kitchen, the nice bright kitchen open to the living room. And to the right there, you can see a dining room chair and the start of the dining room. But the amazing thing to me is what a transformation is. You know what this was? If you look at this kitchen, it's probably similar to a lot of beautiful interior design photographs you see. But let me show you what it looked like when we found it. Ironically, maybe some of you picked up on it, this picture is taken almost in the exact same spot that the previous picture was. So you can see the ivory couch there, and then the big armoire against the wall. That wall actually separated the living room from the kitchen. And it had that really constrained the kitchen. And obviously the home was very dated, had a very dated look for it. So once we spent some time figuring out what they wanted, how we wanted this kitchen to lay out, how we were going to work this out all structurally, the change was awesome. Just complete transformation. You can see what a difference that is, how much more contemporary the home is, not just in a visual sense, but in a lifestyle sense. You know, more and more we're seeing people want that idea to have the open floor plan where the kitchen can flow right into the living room and into the dining room. And I think this is a great example of how this can be done in a home that in this particular case was built in the late 1950s. We also do another project to spend a couple minutes about. This was a great kitchen, turn of the century craftsman home in Sierra Madre. I'll show you the before. I always like to start with the after because the before can be so shocking. And here you can see the before. Well, again, what a transformation, where here in this turn of the century craftsman home, the kitchen was basically built from plywood cabinetry. They had this beautiful view, as you can see, out on the left side, but no way to access that view, no way to step through that. And just, again, very dated and not quite befitting of the house. You'll also notice that there was a lot of congestion here, that where we want to sit, there's a cooktop, and where we may want to cook or socialize, there's a door coming in. So there were some things that the client really liked about this kitchen, where it was in the house. They didn't want to completely open it up. That may not have been appropriate for a craftsman home. But they still wanted to bring it up to enhance to the lifestyle, to bring it up to contemporary standards. And you can see that in the after. The other thing that was quite amazing here as well, you'll notice on the left that we added a door and a deck, and you can start to see that beautiful view. So really just maximizing that views. We brought all of the working part of the kitchen into one area, brought all of the circulation into another, circulation meaning the way that we walk through this. And that actually benefited not just the kitchen in this case, but the dining room as well. You'll notice there in the bottom right of the photograph, we're going to showcase this house in a webinar, 5:30 on May 28th. So if you'd like to hear a little bit more about this project, see some before and afters, some project plans, be sure to keep an eye out for that or register online. We also do some much larger projects as well. This particular house was a green and green historic property in Claremont. Beautiful project. I'll show you the before now. And I have to tell this story because it just shocked me. You know, I was recently out of architecture school when a gentleman walked into our office, and our Claremont office is right up the street from this home. And he said, "I wonder if you have a minute to come see this house with me." And so we started to walk down the street, and we were walking, and he told me the story of how he and his wife had lived in Claremont for years, and they walk around the neighborhood every night. And there was, every day they walked around this house, walked by this house, his wife would tell him, if that house ever comes up for sale, that's the one I want. And he told me, he said, I hoped it never came up for sale, but here it is. What do you think? And, you know, I had studied green and green in architecture school. So I was like, well, it's a green and green home. And he crossed his arms, his words, not mine. He said, it looks like a big brown turd to me. But the thing is, when he sees what you see before you, I can see the after. So let's click over to the after. I can see the change. I can see this. And so part of what you want to do when you start to think about who you want to remodel with is, does someone have some vision? And are they able to give me the confidence that they can bring this vision to bear? And here you can see we went through and completely restored this whole house inside and out, landscape, garage, everything, and just set them up into a beautiful situation for the rest of their life. And I'll talk about this at the end too, because it's a really, really great story. We also do ground up homes. I think the next slide will show you a nice ground up home that you're looking at here. This was a fantastic home. You know, you can see this, it says down there at the bottom, this was an 8.5 acre property for a couple that raised horses. And so they wanted to really maximize this beautiful piece of land that they had. If you can imagine, if you turned around from where this picture was being taken, you would see this beautiful view of the valley. So you can see we did all of these beautiful big windows addressing and taking in all of that view. And then giving it a real, you know, they had this idea of this sort of modern ranch house. So we used a lot of real earth-born materials like stone, you'll see wood, stucco. In this case, we see a mixture of wood windows and steel windows, and then a beautiful relationship inside to outside, right? Where these big expanses of glass can open up out onto these decks, outdoor fireplaces, just a wonderful, wonderful life for them in that home. And it really took a long time for us to spend time with them to really understand what it is that the way they wanted to live in this house. The next slide will show us a couple of fun things. There's a picture, and I bring that picture up because the one you see in the bottom right is the actual home, and in the upper left is a computer model that we built to give them a sense of what it would look like. So I always think it's fun to go back and look at these and see, you know, how much some of those design concepts got carried through to the end, and to give you a chance too of some of the tools that we can use to help you understand what's being proposed and is this your vision. In the upper right corner, you'll see as well what we call an elevation, where if I was to blow that up, this was an illustration that we used to show where stone would be and where the wood windows were and where the steel windows were. And then in the bottom left, you can see part of the inside, nice, beautiful kitchen looking out onto that outdoor fireplace. So that's just to give you a little bit of a range of what we do, what our capabilities are. That's all you're going to hear about HartmanBaldwin in this particular webinar, because I want to start diving into some of this really important subject matter. You know, I often get asked, why do this? Why on a 5:30 on a Thursday evening do you want to take time and talk to people about remodeling? I think, you know, we started this because we had such confidence in our design build process, the fact that we had really taken the time to study and understand how do we set ourselves up for success. And when I say set ourselves up for success, I'm not talking just about HartmanBaldwin. I'm talking about you too, because if your designer and architect and builder have a good experience, you're going to too, and vice versa. So we had this idea, hey, if we can just educate everybody, we'll raise the level of quality and beauty and improve everybody's experiences. We also had this thought that we need to get this out because there's such huge opportunity costs. You know, and some of you are probably familiar with that term of, you know, what are the opportunities and what are the costs of some of the opportunities that we choose not to pursue? okay? And then also this idea that this really for a lot of people is a one-time thing, you know? We'll go ahead and do a remodel one time and then that's kind of it. Now, you may remodel your kitchen and have a good experience and then decide to go ahead and remodel your master suite, but hopefully you're not going to go back and remodel your kitchen. But what I was finding is that people would come to the webinars and come to the seminars, and I would hear a lot of, I call them fears. There were things that were holding people back, okay? And this is what we're going to really dive into in this webinar. Because I'm here to say, if you use the right process and if you get the right people, it can actually be an easy and kind of fun experience, as fun as having your kitchen being remodeled. But that's really what we want. We want a good experience. We want enhancing our lifestyle, increasing the value of our homes, and spending the rest of our time there in the home, enjoying what we have, okay? And then I'm going to lead into, once we talk about some of those fears and what's holding us back, we're going to talk a little bit about some different approaches to remodeling, different relationships you can have with your architect and builder, and how some of those can either create or alleviate some of those fears. I want to take a minute here, check my time a little bit. Also, I want Christina to bring up a poll here. And I want to talk a little bit about what may be holding us back, because I spend a lot of time walking into people's homes, walking through their homes, and spending time with them, talking about what they want to do. And I'm always surprised how many times I go into a home and we may walk into the kitchen and they'll say, you know what, the day I saw this house, I knew we were going to have to remodel that kitchen. Okay, no problem. That's what we do. We go walking through the house and maybe we go into the master bathroom and they say, you know, the day after our home warranty expired, our shower started leaking and we knew we were going to remodel, so we didn't do anything. We haven't taken a shower in that shower since we've been here. We'll finish the rest of the house. We'll go down, sit at the kitchen table, and I'll ask, how long have you been here? Expecting to hear, I don't know, a year, 2 years. But I hear things like 10 years, 12 years, one couple, 17 years. And so I picked my jaw off the floor and I said, you haven't taken a shower in your master bathroom for 17 years? This is an illustration of there was something that holds us back, whether it's fears about what the city will allow or what they won't allow, especially if you live in some of these communities that have such horrible reputations along these lines. San Marino, South Pasadena, parts of Pasadena, La Cañada, Glendale, all of those things. What is the city going to allow? Probably one of the bigger ones, how do we keep control of expenses? How do we avoid schedule delays? All of those good things. So hopefully you have a chance to give us an indication of some of those things and what's at the top of your list. The one there at the bottom is one of my favorite, not knowing where to start. Right? Where do we start? And then the corollary oftentimes is even more important, not knowing where to stop. All right. So I appreciate your guys' participation there. Well, not surprisingly, number one, keeping control of costs and expenses. That's a big one. You know, I don't know if you've heard this story, but I hear this story a lot. You know, I've heard people say, Bill, everybody tells me whatever whatever the contractor tells you, however much it's going to cost, double it. And however long they say it's going to cost, double it, right? So why is that? We're going to talk about that. Not sure what the city allowed. Schedule delays, those can be big, especially if you're trying to live in the home while it's being remodeled. Getting good information, and that we all want to avoid the nightmares and regrets. What are the things that I get this question a lot. What are the new things? I want to make sure I'm exploring all of my options. I don't want to have any regrets when I'm done that I didn't get the greatest new appliance or the most modern, kitchen layout. And then I talked a little bit about not knowing where to start and, of course, not knowing where to stop. Thank you all for that. I think a big part of this is just naming the fear is a big thing, putting a label on it, and then being able to talk with the people that you're working with about some of your fears really can help that. Now, I'm going to go big picture a little bit, and if those of you that may be able to spend more time with us on some of these other webinars, we're going to dive even deeper. But I'm going to talk big picture here for a minute, because I think if we can understand the relationship we may have with a designer, an architect, and a contractor, and where we fit into that, that may help us understand how to avoid all these regrets and nightmares, how to stay in control of the cost and schedule, all of that good stuff. I remember when I was in architecture school, I walked into our studio one day, studio being the class where they taught us design. You know, we built these beautiful models and these beautiful drawings and everything. I don't know, the architect, our professor must have had a bad day that day or something. He walked in and he wrote up on the whiteboard the adversarial triangle. And he said, before we get into our study here, I want to take some time and talk to you about what really happens out there. So when you're out there practicing architecture, you get a sense of what to expect. And he said, every project starts with an owner, whether that owner is an individual, like we're working on a house, like yourselves, or it's a church, or it's an office building, or it's an institutional piece, always starts with a lender. And then we go and hire an architect or a designer, okay? A little bit of a side note, just so you know, in California, we have what's called the Architects Practice Act. And in that act, it says by law, as an architect, you must have a written agreement with the owner. It can be simple, right? It can just needs to talk about what it is the architect's going to design for you, how we're going to get compensated, and then if for some reason things don't work out, how we can terminate. So we spend time together talking about what you want, doing some designing, putting some things together. At some point, you may turn to your architect and say, how much is this going to cost? Are we hitting my budget? Now, as an architect, I'll tell you how much training we get in the cost of things. Zero. It's all about design. Everything I know about the cost of things is the fact that I work at HartmanBaldwin and we build things, so I know the cost of things. Architects, we may, you know, they may be able to look and say, okay, the last project I did was about this much, and I think it's similar to that. But what do we, you know, do we really know? You know, not only that, every time you meet with your architect, more things come up. You know, maybe you go to Home Depot on the weekend and you see this beautiful jacuzzi tub. You're like, oh, I've always wanted a jacuzzi tub, and it's only $1,500. You call up your architect, put a jacuzzi tub in my master, and they draw an oval, an arrow, and say jacuzzi tub. Now, is the true cost $1,500? We don't know, do we? What else could be involved? So anyway, we spend a lot of time, frankly, a lot of emotion, especially in a home. This can be a very emotional thing, a fair amount of money to get a nice set of plans that now we're ready to go and get permitted at the city, and we're ready to select a builder, okay? Now, as an architect, we're taught not to tell you who to choose as a builder for liability reasons. So what do? I mean, we may be able to recommend, hey, I know this guy, he's done some work over there, and this woman's done some work close by as well, but really no connection there. So what do? We send out the plans to 3, 4, 5, however many contractors you want, and we get bids back. And then what do? I hear the story, well, we threw out the high, we threw out the low, we took the middle. Whoa. Your first yellow light should be that there is a difference. If everybody's bidding the same set of plans, why do I have a high and a low, right? Well, a big piece of that is that what most contractors, in fact, probably all contractors know, and what most architects know, this architect learned the hard way, is that there's no perfect set of drawings, okay? So what contractors will do, and this is the terminology that they'll use, and I don't mean to sound disparaging, I'm just talking about reality here, is they will bid the plans, okay? So if it's not on the plan, it's not gonna be in the bid. How does that come back to bite us? For example, let's suppose we were working on a a design for your kitchen, and it's over in one corner of your house. And we design take everything out, everything's coming back in new. We're happy with all of that. We go, we get permits, we find a builder, we're ready to start building. They come out, they demo your kitchen. You come home that night and they say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones or whatever, I need you to sit down. The inspector came by, he was looking at our plans. He went out and looked at the electrical panel and he noticed that to get up to current code, your electrical panel isn't big enough. Now the electrical panel's on the other side of the house, so we didn't look at that. So not only, we need to replace that electrical panel. By the way, that's going to be about $3,000. And the inspector also said, we need to update the drawings to reissue the permit because that needs to be on the permit. So you need to talk to your architect and get the plans resubmitted. What are you going to do? You're going to call up your architect. Whoa, what's happening here? This is day one. I'm already getting my first change order. Okay. So the architect's going to call the contractor. Hey, what gives here? You've done kitchen remodels before. You should know you're going to need to check the electrical panel and replace it if necessary. That should be in your bid. Contractor is going to say, hey, it's not on the drawings. I bid what's on the drawings. And so it begins, right? Architect watching over the contractor, not being nefarious or anything, but finding errors in the drawings. And who ends up paying for all of that, right? The owner, right? So you end up getting in the middle of these two professionals that should be taking care of you. Another common approach I see for maybe some smaller projects, I'll call it straight to construction. Hey, it's a kitchen remodel. It's a bathroom remodel. How hard could it be? I just need to find someone in here that can do it for the right price, and we'll figure it out as we go. Okay, not bad way to do it. I think I've done a couple projects that way. So you go and you can find as many people as you want that'll come in and hold the tape measure up in your bathroom or kitchen, give you a number at the bottom of their quote. One guarantee I'm going to tell you about that number, that's not what you're going to end up paying, okay? Small example, we're figuring out as we go, okay, the contractor says, hey, we installed your cabinets today, that went well, we're going to need your countertop in a couple days, I need you to go pick it out. So you go to the stone yard, take an afternoon off work or something like that, go and fall in love with this beautiful stone, just beautiful. Gotta have it. Okay, great. Go back. Hey, I picked out the stone. It's at this stone yard. Here's the name of it. We're good to go. Get a call later that day from your contractor. Okay, no problem. I'm here at the stone yard. By the way, the stone that you picked is about $1,000 a slab. And in my budget, I had $300 a slab. And you need 4 of them, right? Oh my gosh. What are you going to do? Going to go look for a different stone? You fell in love with that stone. Your kitchen is gone. You can't stop at this point. So what happens? Who really starts to get the power in this relationship, right? What are you going to do? Fire someone in the middle of your kitchen? No. Are you going to go and do compromises and find stone that's less expensive? Maybe. But now we're making all of those decisions under duress, under a very tight deadline. So what I say and what we've developed at HartmanBaldwin is a different approach. I call it the creative sphere. And what it means is, hey, we know you as an owner have a project that you want to do. We're designers, and builders, let's all get together because we all have the same goal. We all want to have a successful project. Even though success means something different to all of us, we still want to have a successful project. Because, hey, listen, here's what can happen. In our office, if I'm working on a plan or something like that, one of our project managers may come through the office. Hey, Reg, come over here. Take a look at these plans. Is there a better way to do this? Is there something I'm not thinking of? Like an electrical panel? Right? So he can start giving us some input early on. And even more important, hey, Reg, how much do you think this will cost? Okay? Because here's a resource that can look at all of the things that we need to consider. Is it on a raised foundation or is it on a slab? Do we have tie-in to other rooms? Are we going to be putting in structural beams? Are they going to be flush or drop? We have some resources that can help. So now what we're able to do is come with some ideas that we know can be accomplished, that we know can be built, and even more importantly, about how much it can cost, okay? Because that's important, right? When do we want to find out how much this project costs? Before we get started, as soon as possible. When do most people find out how much their project costs? When they're done, after they've picked out their slab and their sink and installed all of that and paid for all of the change orders. They don't know what it's going to cost until they're done. That's why we see things go from, they've said it was going to be this much and they doubled that cost. Now just bringing everybody together with a common goal, bringing all of our resources to bear, it can actually be a pleasant experience. So that's why we like to have that idea of the design build in this creative sphere. Okay, 31 minutes. I crammed a lot of information in there. I told you I would come back to this house because I think it illustrates what I've been talking about here. This was the couple. She was in love with this old green and green home. I told you what he thought of it. But we were able to instill the confidence in them to move ahead with this major renovation to the point at the end of it, they said this beautiful quote about us, that this home is a symbol of love and legacy my husband and I wanted to leave behind for our children. HartmanBaldwin helped us achieve that dream. We couldn't have done it without them. This is what just makes my job so worthwhile, to be able to see just that dream come true and to be able to set people up for the rest of their life in this home in such a way that they're just so happy that they come home. I hear people say to me all the time, I love walking into my kitchen in the morning. I just love walking out into my backyard. We've done something and created something that people love, and that gives them such a great feeling. Okay, I'm going to leave here a couple minutes. I don't know, I saw maybe a couple questions come up. I don't know if there's any hanging questions that we still need to answer, or if any of the questions got answered.
Yes, hi, Bill. Thank you so much for that, all that information. We did have a few questions come up during the presentation, and the first being pretty pertinent to what's going on currently, and that is, how is HartmanBaldwin working during the Safer at Home order, and what does that look like?
Okay, yeah, that is a good question. Well, we're doing webinars for one, and two, we talked about this idea of design build. So from a design sense, we took the time and got all of our architects and interior designers set up to work from home, to be able to share all of our drawings and everything. So we're working full speed ahead, safe from home on our designs right now. Construction is a different matter, where we're able to, either the homeowner is not in the home, or we're able to section off a portion of the home so that we don't have to share space. We're continuing to work on those projects very safely, though. Social distancing, we have to slow down a little bit because we're only letting, like one sub in at a time, giving people enough space that they can safely social distance in those situations where homeowners are living in the home. So we're taking all the precautions that we need to keep everybody safe in this time. And it's a very important thing because we are, in most cases, entering into the home.
Yeah, absolutely. And along those lines, another question was, should I wait until the pandemic is over before I start my project?
Maybe, that's kind of up to you. Like I said, we're able to work through designs, through Zoom meetings and through shared technology and everything. And I know this can be a shocker to some people, but frankly, the amount of time that it takes to get through a design, and we'll be talking more about that in one of our other webinars, is several months. So yeah, you can wait until the pandemic is cleared and then start on the design. Or we could start working through a design, because those designs oftentimes can take months. It can take, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, depending on the size of your project, before we're submitting to the city. So what we've been doing is either through Zoom or FaceTime, touring homes and talking about what people want to do in the home, or if we have a chance for them to leave or social distance, we'll follow in behind so we can get a sense of what that is and keep everybody safe while we're doing design. And then construction, depending on how long this lasts and your particular project. As that gets closer, we'll talk about if it's safe to start on construction while we're in this time. But certainly the design can be done, and then that way, once it's safe, you have that in hand and you can start right on the construction.
Yeah, great, good to know. And then lastly, someone asked, is there a minimum project scope that HartmanBaldwin takes on?
Yeah, I get this question asked a lot, and there's no hard and fast answer to that, other than it takes a certain size project for us to be efficient. So what does that mean when there's a lot of trades, a lot of complicated things, a lot of things that we need to, like in a bathroom, for example, you have tile and cabinetry and countertops and sinks and faucets and plumbing and electrical. So there's a lot of coordination that needs to happen. And so, we tend to see that we're efficient at major kitchen remodels and up. And then maybe if you've got a bathroom or something we can do at the same time. And then you've seen some of the other projects, obviously, all the way up to a ground up home.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as questions go, it looks like we're all good here.
Great.
So
I want to just mention a couple of upcoming things. I'll also mention in my 15 years of doing this, the greatest successes and the smoothest projects, believe it or not, have been with the people that take the time to learn about the process, to spend time thinking and talking about some of the things like we're talking tonight. So we continue to offer these opportunities to learn about the process, to learn about us, to learn about remodeling. There's a couple up on your screen that are coming up. We'll try to keep all of these to about a half hour. We have a construction showcase on the Miramonte residence, the one that I showed you, the Craftsman, where we did the kitchen. We'll be using that sort of as a case study, talk about all of the steps of the process, how we did that, talk about the end result. And then we'll also sort of continue on from what we talked about tonight in some of our other Remodelers Survival Guide series. So the next one, we'll start to talk about, okay, now that we know kind of the different approaches, where do we begin? How do we begin? So we'll talk about that. And then we'll, in July, probably sometime early in July, really start to take a deep dive into all the steps of the design build process. So you can get a sense of how that's done, whether you use us or not. This is a process that we've honed over the years. We like to share, but we'll share our process step by step, show you some examples of all of that. And then finally at the bottom, virtual consultation. I mentioned, if you would like to use this time to get some design started for your remodeling projects, and you'd like to have myself or my colleague Jesse or Carla come by, we'll talk to you about how you're comfortable, whether we do a virtual consultation or FaceTime, or if we can, do something safe at the home. Certainly reach out to us. That's something we're happy to offer to people. And then, of course, stay connected. What do we say? Like us, follow us, subscribe. We're on all of those: Facebook, Instagram, our YouTube channel, House, Twitter, and of course our website. So if you'd like to keep informed, like to keep up to date with what we're doing and the information that we're getting out there, please do one of those, and you'll be sure to see some of these comes up and all the opportunities that we offer. And hopefully, once we're all able to be together, we'll even be able to go and tour some of our finished projects. Okay, Great. I will let you all enjoy the rest of your evening, finish your glass of wine, or maybe pour another one or a glass of iced tea. And I hope to see you all again or virtually on May 28th. Have a good evening, everybody. Bye.